Welcome, and thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Café, where we talk to extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses. We're your hosts. I'm Richard Citrin.
And I'm Michael Couch. In times of disruption like we're all experiencing in 2020, we've just found it to be very enlightening to turn to some of our finest regional leaders and find out how they are handling all this, how they are directing their businesses, leading their employees, and contributing to our communities to help make everything run just a little bit better. And I believe we would all agree that that's what we're all looking for right now, things to get better.
Yeah, I am nodding to that one, believe me. Before we get too far along and meet our very special guest today, we want to thank our sponsor, Vaco, a global talent solutions company. We are grateful for their support of the Leadership Cafe. And today I am really excited to introduce and welcome Dr. Howard Slaughter. Howard is President and Chief Executive Officer of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Pittsburgh, but his resume is filled with academic achievements, military services, leadership in the financial and housing markets. He's an author. He's cited in important research and writings. And Howard Slaughter, it is great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the Leadership Cafe.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
Wow, we are grateful to have you. We always like to start off by asking our guests to tell a little bit about themselves. Now, you can't go through your whole resume because that'll take all the time, all of your achievements, but kind of the things that are most important to you. And of course, your work with Habitat for Humanity, which is, again, so important. And I think builds on what your career has built in many ways. So if you give a little bit of that background, and of course, we're particularly interested in your leadership ideas and tips and what you've seen during the pandemic, during these times of more searching for racial and social equity as well. So please let us know your thoughts on those as well, Howard.
Sure. Thank you so much again, Richard. It's my pleasure to be here. I won't go into all of my experience and background, but let me just say one of the most important things to me early on in my career from a leadership perspective was 2 weeks after graduating from high school, I found myself in boot camp. And as a 17-year-old boy who just graduated from high school and had an opportunity to serve the country, that's where my leadership skills really began. When you are in the military, you learn leadership in many different ways. And that way began with being a follower, right? Mm-hmm. I really believe that before you can become a great leader, you have to be a great follower. And in the military, you're taught to follow the rules, follow the process, and then build from there. So military, came back to Pittsburgh after spending some time at the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Pentagon, and came back and started working at a place called Equibank. And some of the younger folks who were watching this may not remember Equibank, but I know you gentlemen remember the Big E, the Equibank, and that's where my banking career started. And I've had an illustrious career in the banking industry, and then morphed into housing, and then left the corporate sector and went to the nonprofit sector. So I've had an opportunity to work in the corporate sector and in the nonprofit sector. Both I do love. But currently, I'm the CEO for Habitat, and I got to tell you, Habitat is a wonderful, wonderful organization. One of the things that I love about Habitat, we're a faith-based organization. Mm-hmm. And unlike many companies, we pray at our board meetings. We can pray at our staff meetings, something that's very important to me, and not something that everyone can do. So I really love that part of what we do. But our mission is so very, very important. I mean, we build, preserve, and finance affordable housing. Yes. And most organizations may do one, but not all three. And I like to consider that we're a hybrid organization. What do I mean by that? We can do mortgage financing. We also operate a retail store called the Restore, which is located in the Swissville Shopping Center. And we build houses. So there aren't too many nonprofits that have that bifurcated approach that we have. And that's why I say we are a hybrid organization. So we're very happy to be in that space. So I love helping people. That's something that's very important to me. And it's really something that we do. We connect and engage families as well. This is something that most don't do as well. We build homes, and when we build homes, we ask the families to participate. They're required to provide 350 hours of sweat equity. And that's important.
How long does it take to build a house?
Well, it depends, and I'll tell you why. Some of the homes we build, we may build 4 homes at one time. We may build 1 home. So we do a number of different ways. We do it a number of different ways. We recently completed a 4-home development in Homewood. We're doing a 2-home development right now in Penn Hills. We just did a 1-home development in McKeesport, a 1-home development in East McKeesport. So it depends on what style, what type, and how many we are building. But typically, it can take 8 months. And one of the reasons is because we use a volunteer model base to do the development that we do. Right. And that's really unique as well. We're really happy about the volunteers that we use to help us build homes. Very rarely does an individual get an opportunity to help build his or her own home, right? Even if they have somebody build it, they still don't participate in it. So this model is very unique around the country, and it allows the families to really connect. One of the things that we really believe is when families are working on their homes, they're much more likely to not walk away if there are problems because they're vested. They're vested. It's more than just money. It's an emotional connection that really is very strong, very strong. So that's something that's very important to us in engaging our volunteers and the families. And so we have people who work on our homes that want to just volunteer. And it's a very interesting thing. I have to be honest. When you look at the volunteers that we have, it's very humbling because I can tell you right now, we've had all kinds of people volunteer. We've had young kids, high schoolers, professionals, and we have a number of professional volunteers. And we have people who are in the medical field that have volunteered. You just never know who's going to be on site.
And ex-presidents,
Yes. Jimmy Carter, you were talking about. And I got to tell you, a lot of people may not know, but it was Miller Fuller and his wife who actually started the organization early in the 1976. When this was started. It was started in Americus, Georgia, and in the 80s, Jimmy Carter got involved, and he lived in Plains, Georgia. So there was a connection. And so a lot of people do think that Jimmy Carter was at the forefront, and he was, made a big difference, but heightened the level of awareness of what Habitat does. And so we're really excited about the work. And Millard and Linda Fuller really were trailblazers, and Jimmy Carter and his wife, Rosalind Carter, came along, and it's really made a big difference for us.
And and I didn't realize didn't know about Habitat Restore until we moved our parents, from their house they'd been into in many years to to a retirement community. Habitat Restore was phenomenal. The folks that came and helped us and give us suggestions beyond the stuff that we could even provide to Restore. So we really appreciated that.
Michael, it's a big help for a lot of people that need product, eclectic things, you name it, you can find it. And the best thing is it's a really good price, right? Very good price. And we have a lot of families that donate. People call us all the time and want to donate. We just got a great donation from a family who basically donated their entire kitchen. They were remodeling. So we're very happy with the people who help us to put products in our store, and we're also happy about those who come and frequent our store.
Yes.
Yeah. So this has been an unusual year, needless to say. From your perspective as a leader, what has been critical for you and your role with your organization, with the community, to try to navigate the challenges of 2020?
Yeah, I think for us, it's been the communication process. One of the things that COVID has done in a positive way, I think, is it has allowed organizations to understand how important it is to communicate. And one of the key pieces of communication that a lot of people don't focus on is the listening aspect of communication. And often people think about it from a perspective of saying or discussing, but it's very important to listen. And we've had a chance to listen to a lot of our volunteers, our families, and those who help support the organization. But it's also been interesting because we have now recognized how important it is to work in various areas. So we don't have a staff that only does one thing. Our staff does many things, and that's because it's important to really help others focus on the work that's needed. And so COVID has had an impact on us, but I have to be honest, while it has slowed us down, because for a while we had to stop building. You know, it was a time we had to stop building. We had to close our store for a number of weeks. So has it impacted us? Absolutely. But has it also galvanized us and made us focus and refocus on how we do things? Absolutely. For example, we've reshaped some of the products and the way in which we do things on our website, so it's more inviting, so people can understand more clearly how we do what we do and why we do what we do. It's important to engage your volunteers. One of the things that I often try to do now, and I've tried to do that before, but even more so now, is to go out and visit on site, talk to, share experiences, say how important the work is. And when people recognize that the work that we are doing benefits people who are in need, they're much more amenable to figuring out how they can work through the process and get it done. We've changed some of our guidelines and how we manage the homes that we build and all of the things that we need to do for COVID. We can put together a process that allows us to have hand sanitizing. All of those things are on our sites. We talk to the volunteers, we share information. So we're very careful in making sure that they know that they're going to be safe when they come on our site. And I think that's a big part of making sure people understand that you're cognizant and you are aware and you take very seriously how important their safety is, as well as our own staff's safety and the volunteers and families.
Yeah, that's your point about the how critical it is to listen. We partnered with a colleague organization that did global surveying about responses, employees' perceptions about responses to the to COVID, and it was very positive. Employees said, you know, communications were great, but I feel like I don't have the voice I used to have because I'm working remotely or something. So I'd like more opportunities to be heard. So I think your emphasis there is right on.
Yes, that's a very good point. I think the other thing that we've tried to do as well is, I would just say that from a service perspective, we service our families, we serve the community. We've basically made community service and family service our business ethos. And that's really important, very important as well.
Well, then you become, you know, then you're seen internally and externally as a mission-driven organization, and that's really the important value. And you know, we've been asking our guests, Howard, about the racial and social equity movement that we've been seeing, reinvigoration that we've been seeing this year through the tragedies of George Floyd and others. And you know, nothing could be, I think, more important to racial equity than affordable housing. But it's also, you know, such a, you know, you're talking about building four units or 2 units or 1 unit. Does it get frustrating to say, you know, I want to be building 10,000 units? That's what we need in the community. And what are your thoughts about, you know, how we're addressing these issues and what we need to be doing?
Sure, Richard, that's a great question. I think, first of all, I'll start out by saying that many of the homes that we build have gone to minorities. The need is great. Minorities don't have the same home ownership as non-minorities across the board, not just here, across the country. And so we are equal employment opportunity organization as well as equal housing. So we've been helping families all along, and the preponderance of our families have been African Americans, number one. Number two, I think housing, as you said, is so important. And here's why. The average person still gains his or her wealth from the equity in their home. Yeah, right. Equity, home ownership is important. The average person probably has the largest asset on their balance sheet is probably their home. So when you're able to help people become homeowners, you're doing more than just giving them a place to live. Right. It's intergenerational opportunities.
Yes. Yeah.
Kids do better when they are in a safe and home environment. So this business of building homes has a cataclysmic positive effect on those whom we serve. So it's very important in this day and time. I mean, I think when you look at some of the dinner table issues today, we know it's COVID, it's safety, but it's also, where do I stay? Where do I have a place to live?
Yes.
And that's what's really critically important for us. So our mission and our vision is so important because people need home ownership. When you look at it, and you both remember, and those listening, I'm sure remember when we were in college and we talked about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Oh, yeah.
It's right there.
Two of the most important things at the bottom of the pyramid was housing, shelter, and food.
Right.
And so, and it remains to this day two very important things. So I think that's very important. And when you talk all the challenges that we've had over the last year or so, I remember when I did a fellowship at Harvard, there were two people there that really impacted me. This was almost 20 years ago. I just want to take a minute because one of the first persons that I met that was really heavily involved in the civil rights movement was at Harvard University, and her name was Myrlie Evers. She's the wife of Medgar Evers.
Wow.
And they brought her in to talk to us. We were in a fellowship program at the Kennedy School, and I had a chance to meet Myrlie. And when I heard her story and how she persevered, remember her husband was killed by a KKK sniper, and she continued to move on. She began to focus on leadership. She ultimately became the chair of the board of the NAACP National. And so we had a lot of opportunity to hear how important the struggle is to continue to do the right thing, even in the midst of people doing the wrong thing to you.
Yeah.
And so that was a very, very important lesson. And then the other person I met in that same program, and you know this name, her name was Elaine Chao. Elaine Chao had just completed, or she was in the midst of turning the United Way of America around. That's when I met Elaine at Harvard, and she shared her whole story about, immigrating with her parents to the States and her rise. And she was, asked to come and help turn around the United Way. And she provided a very good leadership model for how she did that. And so she gave a very strong perspective on how leadership is important. And so those two women were very impactful early on in my career about leadership and keep on striving no matter what people do to you, both minorities, by the way.
Yes.
So those are two women that I strongly say that had an impact in my life as it relates to leadership.
Yeah,
one of the things that Michael and I talk about in our work around leadership is the importance of diversity of different experiences. And, looking through your work, you've done a lot of everything, not a little of everything, a lot of everything. How have those diverse experiences contributed to, I mean, you've talked about the military, you talked about this time at Harvard. Have there been other experiences that have been notable in terms of helping you to frame your approach to leadership?
Yeah, there have been, and it's been interesting because I'll give you one example. When I began teaching at the collegiate level, I remember one time when I was in what we call the teacher's lounge, if you will.
You know, all the smoke, the coffee, probably back then.
Yes, yes, and at the time, obviously, I wasn't well known because it was just started to teach, and let's just say that I learned a lot in being in circles where minorities, in many cases, are the only person, or early on in the process, and the things sometimes that you have to deal with as it relates to that, even when you're qualified, even when you are the professor, things of that nature. So I've had a lot of those experiences that I've had to overcome, like many, but I've learned early on that you have to persevere and continue the effort and push forward, because if you don't, you're going to have a hard making it, because people will say things, they will do things. Even to this day, you know, you run into situations that are not what I would call great situations, but it's the time in which we live. And I think for me, trying to make sure that I do everything that I can to be an example as to what you can do to continue on. You know, many individuals, I was talking to a group not long ago, and I know what it's like being pulled over, surrounded by police, things of that nature. It's not a great feeling, but everyone is not against you, and you have to understand that there are a lot of people who are for you, and a lot of people support you. So my message is, while you may run into something, I mean, if you drive a car, the likelihood is you're going to have it flat at some point in time, right? I mean, it's just, you're going to have it flat. The key is be prepared, fix it, and move on. And that's how I like it. You're going to run into situations periodically in your life. Be prepared to fix it and move on. Don't dwell on it, or don't get to the point where you say, well, I'm never going to drive again because I had a flat tire. All right. And that's the attitude and the perspective that I have. And I also, you know, I have to be honest, I trust God, and I ask God to lead and guide me in everything that I say and do. And so he's been the one who's been at the forefront of my life, and that's made a significant difference for me. And I would say this too. I remember when I got my first degree, I have to be honest, I never thought I would even get a degree.
Yeah, wow.
I remember, you know, it took me 4 years to complete an associate's degree at community college. And I'll tell you all a funny story. I brought the biggest ring I could find when I graduated from CCAC, because at the time I said, if I never get another degree, I've got one. That's beautiful. And that's a true story. And, you know, my background, thank God, I've been blessed. I have 5 earned degrees now. But my point is to start it out with, if I could just get 1 degree, even at the associate's level, which was very important. And one of the things that I tell anybody, if you introduce me, I always like to make sure they mention my associate's degree, because that's where it started, and that's important as well. So you just keep going, you keep moving, and you'll get there.
Yeah. So in our research on what it takes to develop top performing leaders, we hear your message over and over in that good development isn't always an easy thing. That navigating difficult, challenging experiences is really where leaders pick up the skills they need to be able to move on. And we also talk about the importance of little rules of thumb that you gather from those experiences, so that it can help you the next time. We call them mantras. And I hear 2 fantastic ones. Like here, do the right thing in the midst of people doing the wrong thing to you. I love that one. Sounds like a John Lewis quote. He has some great ones. And
yeah, he does.
Be prepared, fix it, and move on. I love both
of my own quotes. And I just came up with it just now because it's true. It's the life that I've lived. And I think, you know, we focus a lot on the negatives, but we have to focus on the positives. And that's what we have to do. And, you know, we know that in every aspect of life, we will run into some difficulties. It is really truly a matter of perspective. And that's one of the things that I always look at. What's your perspective? What's your outlook? And I also believe that when you are gifted, when God gives you a gift, you have to use it. And when people don't use that gift, I think they're hindering their progress. They're hindering their destiny.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have gifts, but they don't use them. That's no one else's fault but your own. So find out what your God gift is and then use it, and you'll be successful, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. I noticed, Richard and I just published a book this year and realized how challenging and learning experiences that could be. And we see that you just came out with a new book as well, Addicted to Debt, Get Out and Stay Out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, thank you. Congratulations on your book, by the way.
Yeah.
And I wrote this book because I recognize, being in the industry that I'm in, finance, housing, economic development, one of the key factors that I've seen that continue throughout my career is that there are many individuals who don't believe they can live debt free.
Yeah.
Some people believe that they're always going to have a car payment, they're always going to have a mortgage payment. And no matter what income level you are, one of the things you can do, you may not ever make $1 million a year, but you can be debt free. And I think that has a big stronghold on a lot of people, and it causes stress. Some will tell you that financial problems are the #1 thing that causes divorces. There are a lot of things that impede one's ability when they're under the stress of having so much debt. And we really don't have to live like that. And it's not just for individuals, it's for organizations, churches, corporations, it's this debt thing. Our country is laden in debt, $22 trillion. And by the way, we're never going to pay it off.
No.
So that's not the model we want to look at. And so I wrote the book to provide some pragmatic examples of how one can become debt free. And I didn't say this is how to do it. My message was, let me share with you some examples of how my wife and I were blessed to be able to do it. And that hopefully can spark some ideas for one to be able to consider the importance of being debt free. And when you are debt free, you live differently, you make different decisions, and you do things much more differently than you did prior to becoming debt free. And you never want to go back into debt once you become debt free.
Right.
Yeah,
Great.
that's
Great
great.
message. Great
that's
content.
important. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And I think lastly, the reason that I wrote it is because you want people to understand that you can be what you want to be. And to do that, it just takes some discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, so make sure before we end, we want to make sure we let people know how they can support or contribute or connect with Habitat for Humanity.
Sure. Thank you so much, because every dollar we receive is important, and it really does make a difference, and it helps us to continue to do the work that we do by building homes and helping to repair homes for families. Simply, they can call the office. Our number is 412-450-8520. You can ask for Stephen Hart. He's our development director. You can reach us at habitatpittsburgh.org.
Okay.
And you can contact me as well. My email is hslaughter@pittsburghhabitat.org. We're really excited about the opportunities to make a difference in the community, and we thank all of those who have supported us. And if you have any questions, give us a call. Come volunteer with us. We can certainly use more volunteers. And come visit us at our Restore, which is on Monongahela Avenue in the Swissvale Shopping Center, right next to the post office.
All right. Great. Well, we thank you for being a guest on the Café. But
Amazing.
We really look forward to these conversations. I learn something every time we have them, and I've learned a lot from your great background and experience. Of course, we want to also make sure we thank our sponsor, Vaco. For really helping making the Café an important place for us to visit with entertaining and enlightening folks such as yourself. And Howard, as a thank you, we're also going to send you you a copy of our book that Richard and I just published this year, Leadership. So we'll make sure we get your address before we sign off. These podcasts are released every Thursday, and you can find them on also on Richard's website, on my website, as well as the VACO website at vaco.com. And they'll be posted on LinkedIn, Spotify, and Pocket Casts. And as I said, we'll watch for their being released every Thursday. So we also want to make sure we want to thank our producer director Michelle Jaruzelski for providing such amazing support, and for all of us at the Leadership Cafe, we thank you for joining in.
Thank you.